We didn't do a sound
Is there a
effect.
delay? Oh yeah. Ready? Three, two, one.
I went too soon.
No, you didn't. You
Well,
were perfect
to be
then.
fair, a few minutes of us
Yeah, yeah.
trying to land a
No,
balloon could be quite entertaining at the start of the episode. But
yeah.
hello, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Mm.
We are landing in where
Finland.
Finland. We've come to Finland
Finland.
this week.
Debatably, we'll discuss that afterwards.
I'm not sure if it's debatably.
I mean, it sort of is.
The film we watched was definitely
Sort.
Finnish.
Mm.
Like if we'd gone for the other film, it may not have been. It could be debatable, but this one is
It's more.
very
It's more.
Finnish.
I mean, again, we'll discuss this later. What's the film, James? What have
We
we watched in
decided,
this
as we've gone to
Finnish?
Finland, we decided to go with the most popular Finnish export to the rest of the world, the Moomins.
Yep.
And we watched Moomins and the Comet Chase. There was
Mm.
probably a better Moomins film we could have watched, but we picked Moomins and the Comet Chase.
Although saying that, I mean, this is an adaptation of one of the original books, so
Um,
it's
is it?
it is
I know the first
from
book
what.
is Moomin in Comet Land, but
Yeah, it's an adaptation of. I don't think necessarily it's a straight.
because we did actually,
Um,
there is a film version of Moomin in Comet Land.
mm, I'm 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 sure that this is
But
at least a twist on it.
weirdly, we
Anyway, yeah.
decided to go for this film because it features a lot of Swedish actors, not Finnish actors, Swedish actors.
Mm. Well, I mean, we
um,
went for this because it had actual Scandinavian actors in, whereas like the other one that we were potentially going to go for, which was the 2014 film Riviera,
yeah,
was more of an international cast. There was some Brits and some
I mean,
Scandies
this
and
has
some
Stellan
like.
Skarsgård, Peter Stormare, Alexander Skarsgård, Mads Mikkelsen.
I mean, the whole voice cast is
Yeah,
Scandinavian at
it
least.
is also
Um,
potentially a reason why voice actors are a better choice than actors sometimes for animated films than going for named actors. But
I mean, yeah. Although I kind of,
it's an odd
I
film.
it is an odd film, but I think it like. Did you ever see the Magic Roundabout film that came out when the Magic Roundabout was actually the
No, I've
original
seen the
Magic
Magic
Roundabout?
Roundabout, but I've never seen the film.
Because there's
Well, I don't
the
think I have. I might have.
it's dark as it gets.
Oh,
It's as dark and weird
I
and
mean, the Moomins has
twisted as.
always been a little dark,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
the Moomins is heavily based in Finnish and Scandinavian folklore.
The troll mythology and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
This film has a interesting animation style. It's, I guess, stop motion.
it is stop motion,
Yeah,
but
made
it's
with felt figures.
yeah. So it's done on that multi
On what sometimes feels like
flat
a
plane.
paper crafted
Yeah,
backdrop.
yeah. Well, it's that multiple flat plane
Yeah,
thing where they use flat planes to create a depth of field.
it
It's
com
been seen in computer games recently with the Ori games,
it
the Will o' the
completely
Wisp and
lacks
Blind Forest.
my one of my favorite Moomin characters, which was a disappointment for me, and that
Go
would
on.
be Little My or Little My.
Mm, yeah. Um, I mean, to be honest, this is the first time I've watched any Moomins in 30 years.
I tried a bit of the recent animated show that Sky had the British rights to.
Mm,
That was very good,
yeah.
and
No, I
that
mean,
got some
the
critical
the
acclaim.
last like even remotely passing um, interaction I've had with anything Moomins was when I flew Finnair a few years
Yeah,
ago and flew through Helsinki, and of course there's absolutely tons of Moomin memorabilia
I
and
mean,
project
I
and
like the
stuff like that.
Moomins a fair amount.
I loved it as a child. It's just something that I haven't necessarily watched again since.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. Um, I mean, going back to my initial question of is it Finnish, is it Swedish? It is Finnish. It's obviously like it was created by a Finn, but it was a Swedish-speaking Finn, because Swedish is the official second language of Finland.
Yeah.
And so there are some people who Finnish is their first language. Oh, sorry, Swedish is their first language, and Finnish is their second language. And he was one of them. So the original Moomin's comic book and books were written in Swedish, but published in Finland, which obviously is why I think potentially having the Swedish voice actors is suitable for this film, because obviously in theory they would have also done all of their voice acting in Swedish as well, because the majority of these voice actors, as you listed them off, are actually famous voice actors. Famous actors that the whole world would be aware of. So they've done this in English, and I assume in Scandinavia they've done it.
It was languages on
Swedish.
Wikipedia has it as English and Finnish.
Interesting.
So it does have a dual language release. Potentially the same actors doing both, though.
Yeah, you see, that's what I was thinking. But I'm surprised it's Finnish, because like I thought with them hiring Swedes and it being originally a Swedish language but Finnish product, that maybe they
has a Bjork song.
Proper weird. I mean, it's what you expect from Bjork.
When it started, and obviously you've got animated creatures that don't seem to have any relevance to the rest of the film. It's just an opening and closing title sequence with these weird animated creatures and a Bjork song playing.
It's almost like a reboot of the Clangers with a Bjork soundtrack, like at the beginning of a Moomin film. Yeah. And I mean, speaking of the Clangers, I mean, like, I think this does have that dry, stark feel a lot of the time to what the Clangers had, because that was a bit of a weird show, especially with having a narrator as well. Not Mads Mikkelsen. Oh God, what's his name? Max von Sydow. The narrator.
Yes, he narrated
which is a little link to our previous stop off in Sweden.
Obviously, the closest film that we probably watched on this show to this would be the film we watched for Ireland.
Yeah.
Song of the Sea.
Which I think, again, I mean, like, the Moomins is heavily based on like Scandinavian mythology.
I mean, this isn't a direct. Apparently, it was released in 3D, but
I could see it working quite nicely.
Yeah, so could I. Actually. But yeah, I don't think it is a straight to DVD. Oh.
What I did struggle.
It is a compilation of the Comet in Moominland based episodes of these. This was released in 2010, but apparently it's compiled from episodes of the Moomins TV series from 77 to 82, but with a restored and re-soundtracked with multiple voice actors replacing the single narrator.
Oh, interesting.
Well, that is interesting.
Oh, because I couldn't find any information on the director, because I was looking her up.
Apparently directed by Maria Lindberg and Matthew O'Callaghan, but then. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So we've obviously taken an old TV show, put the footage with a new soundtrack, new cast, because obviously there's no easy enough to do, because there's nothing to sync lip wise, and because none of the creatures' mouths really move. You've just got.
None of them necessarily even have mouths.
I will say, the shop scene where they buy all this stuff, but they can't afford it. So one of them returns the trousers, and that covers the cost of everything else. It's like, how's this lady in business? Like,
I mean, my wife brought that up last night, and I got the feeling because obviously you've like as relatively dark as this story is, it's easy to forget that this is children. That
Yeah.
these are little like all of the characters except for um oh God, what's his name? Um Snuffton, is it, or something like that?
Well,
The hobo.
even Snufkin though he's
Yeah,
more like a teenager, right? He's
yeah.
like
But I mean,
that older kid the kids hang out
yeah.
with more than being
Mm.
an adult.
But I mean, they're all kids, so there's a chance that the shopkeeper was perfectly aware of what she was doing and the fact that she
Yeah.
was going to lose money on this.
Although
And
Snork is an adult.
Snork,
Yeah, Snork is the one with the hat, I think.
I don't think he is.
He
I don't think
feels it.
Snork's.
Like, is he
No,
not?
I think it's a smart kid who thinks he's way more mature than he is. I was reading
Oh
it
wait,
as
no,
like,
sorry. Snork is. Oh yeah, he
I,
is. He's Snork Maiden's older brother.
mm, but I mean, how much older? Because I would put like Snork Maiden and MoominTroll at like the equivalent of 10 or 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
So at most, so like I'd say that like Snork himself is probably only just into high school, and it's because he's only just into high school. He thinks he's a big lad, and he thinks he's but he isn't an adult. He's 14 at most, and because he's a bit
To
of a
quote
nerd,
a British sensibility, he's a briefcase
yeah,
wanker.
he's a briefcase wanker, yeah. But a young one. Like I don't think he's even got to the point where he's kind of seeking out female trolls himself. Um, he's far too interested in his books currently.
Yeah, they
And
are all kids, and
yeah,
I like that they're all trying to contend with Moomin Valley turning into a Snyder film,
yeah.
being
I mean, it's
desaturated, and
quite apt in a way that we've watched this on the week that the Schneider cut gets released.
more. We'll discuss a little bit more on that in our 50th episode, which will be coming before this episode we're recording now. So you'll have already potentially heard at least our initial thoughts on its release, if not seeing it, because that's coming. We're going to review it down the line.
Yeah, we're going to review it afterwards.
Yeah, this should be episode 51 of our overall podcast for anyone watching and still listening to us ramble. We are rambling a bit here because as much as I didn't not enjoy this, I have very little to say about it.
I mean, I think now that we've got the context of it being actually a compilation of episodes from a much older television series that's been spliced together, I can get it, and because that means it is contemporary to the old Magic Roundabout. And if you ever get the chance
How
to
old was
watch,
the Moomin show I would have watched as a kid? Because that was classical 2D animation.
I think that was in the I think it was contemporary to the 80s. So I think it was when I was a kid. It was getting.
Apparently,
made.
the original network for the one that this was a compilation from was ITV.
Mm.
And it was originally narrated by Richard Murdoch.
Huh. Interesting.
So it's also based on it's compiled out of a UK show.
Mm. How strange.
Produced by a Polish animation company.
Yeah.
We're truly international today, folks.
We are. But yeah, if you get the chance to watch Dougal and the Blue Cat, which was a feature length, Magic Roundabout, from the time that the TV series was being made, not the animation that was made in the noughties with Robbie Williams playing Dougal.
Yeah.
That is weird. Really weird. So, like, knowing now that this is actually a similar age, it makes sense.
1990 is the show I'm thinking of. The traditional animated one. We do
then
like
this
the
makes
Moomins in
sense.
Britain, though.
Yeah, we do. Like, but then I remember in the 80s and the early 90s, there was a huge influx of foreign cartoons actually.
Yeah,
That there was tons of like continental stuff, and there was the first hint of Japanese cartoons as well,
yeah.
that came in. Obviously, all completely dubbed and what have you. Um,
I
but
like I remember going on holiday to Copenhagen in Denmark,
mm,
and the amount of Moomin stuff you could purchase, and was just it might have been in touristy spots,
mm.
but like then even I remember going into a department store and there was nearly a floor full of Moomin stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a big brand, really, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean, like they do seem to be officially partnered with Finnair now as well. So
yeah,
like you fly Finnair and you can like half of the in-flight magazine, like the catalog is Moomin official merchandise and
yeah,
products and stuff like that. So they like as much as it does seem to be a trans-Scandinavian thing now, because then again, I think like the whole troll thing is a trans-Scandinavian
yeah.
thing from um, like the Moomins are definitely a Finnish thing, so I think it's a
I
suitable
forget
choice.
the name of it, but I recently started playing a video game that's based in it's a point and click adventure game
Mm.
that's based in Scandinavian folklore,
Oh yeah,
and you lose your brother and you've got to go try and get him back.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, what I've played it so far, it's good.
Cool.
I just can't recall the
Um,
name off the top of my head.
typical,
Yep.
typical. No, I liked it. I think I mean, as we alluded to before, it's like the fact that it's got the through line as far as for us of having Max von Sydow in it,
Yeah.
who was the star of last week's episode, and potentially if Norway's going the way that we think it's going to. It has the voice of the star of next week's episode as well.
Yeah.
So it tells quite a nice tale of unity, I suppose. I mean, obviously, Scandinavia is vastly different in certain ways, but they do share a lot of similarities. I think a little bit like uh, season one for us, the
Yeah.
United Kingdom. There's lots of similarities and there's lots of differences between the the United Kingdom and
I mean,
Ireland.
there's even
Um,
similarities to the film we watched last year, and the fact they're very much about characters going on a quest journey, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, like it's again. I mean, we alluded to the fact that they're kids. Like, how
Yeah.
much of this is like through the perspective of of the children, and it isn't actually anywhere near as grand and terrifying and what have you. Like, I mean, the fact that like Moomin Mama still made a cake.
Yeah.
Yet, it could very well be that this is all.
I like that it just ends on them going home for strawberry jam and pancakes as well.
I mean, what's wrong with that?
No, nothing. I just like that
Exactly. Yeah.
it kind of fades to dark on a line of going, let's go home for strawberry jam and pancakes.
I mean, it's sort of apt for
Yeah.
what's happening at the
It,
moment in the world. Like, who would have thought that we'd lived through such a drastic pandemic?
yeah.
Like, um, and yet at the end of it, we're probably just going to go and have strawberry jam and pancakes.
It's
Like,
I liked it a lot for what it is.
hmm,
It's a film. I don't think I'm going to say, hey guys, go and watch this film.
no,
It is a film saying like if we watch it on Amazon Prime because that's what it's on over in the UK.
yep.
And I will say if you want something to entertain your kids for an hour and 15 minutes, there's worse things you could put on for sure.
Although it's a bit dry and it is a bit scary. I
Yeah,
think
but
like
I remember really
they'd.
liking the Moomins as a child, and I don't
Mm.
think they were any less weird
No, yeah,
weird then.
yeah.
Like
Mm.
I think it's a great It's a good kids film.
I think also the pacing
I think
it does suit kids films because it's quite flitting.
yeah.
Like it's like, oh, this happens and now this happens. Like the fact that it just comes to an end and then it moves on and it comes to an end.
I
Like
think if we had watched the other film, we would have had more to say. I think Moomin and the Riviera would have been more. And I understand why now, realizing this is a compilation of TV episodes cut into film length.
Yeah,
I feel like we potentially might have had more to say about Riviera, but I also think this was the right choice to go for.
I think so too. I think like although there's lovely little touches in it, like when they were playing "Roll the Rock Down the Mountain," like I have no idea if this is correct, but I imagine that in Scandinavian folklore that landslides are trolls pushing rocks down mountains.
I have no idea.
I could, yeah. I mean, I have no idea, but like I imagine that like that would be like one of the old explanations.
This is where research before we do these episodes would be handy.
Or we just purely speculate and have fun with it.
I do think it's a short one again this week.
Yeah.
Last week's was also a short one, so you got a meaty 1 hour episode for the first episode of season 2 of this show, but 2 short ones.
Coming
up.
I mean, I definitely recommend this. I think it's certainly an interesting watch. I think if you are a fan of film as a whole,
I think if you're a fan of animation, it's worth watching.
Yeah. Well. I mean, like because it's an interesting study.
Yeah.
It might not be something you enjoy in the
There's
usual
nothing to
sense.
Not enjoy about it though.
But I mean, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the glee-filled thing that maybe Riviera would be.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice film.
I liked it. And knowing now that it is actually a compilation of old things that they've kind of pieced together.
I will say, as well. Oh, sorry, you finish on that.
Well, I mean, again, I think it's an interesting piece of history, in a way, that, as you say, it's like Moomins very much represent Finland, but as a wider thing that represents Scandinavia as a whole. But the fact that it's such an international production as well, like it's a Polish animation studio, and which would have made it before the Iron Curtain fell as well. Yeah. So this is a time when Poland was still part of the Soviet. Well, it's sort of part of the Soviet Union, and this was an ITV made production. Well, paid for production. So it's a British paid for Polish produced Scandinavian product.
It looks like they re-released that show in HD in 2010 as well, so this might have had a cinema release as part of a kind of home marketing push for a remaster of that show.
And then let's face it, I mean, getting those names together, they are not small names in the slightest, especially in their home country. Most of them are Swedish, but I mean, especially in their home countries, they're big names. To get them together to celebrate this, it is quite a significance. So, I think you're right. We chose the right film. It is. I'm not the biggest animation buff, so I don't think I necessarily.
I'm a pair of us. I'm the bigger animation fan. I think.
Yeah, although I do think that, again, it is interesting that we now see those same 2D techniques being incorporated into modern gaming. One of the most beautiful games out last year, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. One of the few true 4K, and I think it's 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series X. It uses the same animation technique, obviously in a purely computerized space, but that single flat pieces layered to make a depth. It's quite lovely.
Yeah.
So next week we're off to Norway.
Just to give you all a heads up, guys, we haven't quite 100% decided yet, but there's a chance we hear there's a strong wind blowing in that might blow the balloon elsewhere for a week. So there might be a 1 week programming gap in this season of Around the World where we touch on something else.
We've heard there's a very clumsy cape-wearing person who likes to knock down buildings and doesn't care about those.
Yeah, so we think we might take a week off from Around the World, but when we do come back to Around the World, we will be going to
Norway. Yeah. Which, as is fit, if we can find the film that we're after to watch without being naughty. And,
we're watching an early Stellan Skarsgård film.
Early-ish, yeah.
Yeah. We've got access to it.
We have got access to it.
So
we'll be watching.
Yeah.
Our through line will continue, and we'll be watching some Stellan Skarsgård next week. It's not Thor, by the way. We won't be watching that.
No.
Well,
yeah, I'd say it might not be next week, but next episode.
Oh, they're saying that would have been a decent option. Sort of.
Yeah, we'll see you where we see you.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.